Continuing now with our lead story, most American voters not liking either of the two candidates. Joining us from Washington, Charles Krauthammer. Today, in Pueblo, Colorado, south in the state, Trump defended himself against the New York Times exposition and Hillary Clinton, saying he's not contributing anything to the country by not paying taxes. Is that wise to mount an aggressive defense?
Well, I think he sort of has to. It would be preferable if he could just sidestep it. That's what you would want, and that's what you have surrogates for. That's why he sent out Giuliani and Christie on the weekend, who said he's a genius for ducking taxes. I don't know if you're a genius. You hire the right lawyers and you make the decision to go ahead and to pay the minimal amount of taxes. I do think he needs to say something. The reason is he's resisted for a year the release of his taxes, and Hillary hit him pretty squarely by saying, what are the reasons? There are only a few possible to explain that. Nobody believes the audit excuse. Even his son said on TV he doesn't want 3,000. He doesn't want 300,000 people critiquing the tax returns.
And that was the reason.
But I think he's got to give some explanation, because this is obviously either the reason or the main reason why he wouldn't release his taxes.
Okay, now I want you to
he needs to say something.
Step out of your role as a pundit, just as an American citizen, okay? So what he did, and we have Stuart Varney coming up behind you, so we're going to talk more about nuts and bolts, but I don't want to get into that. But what Trump did was perfectly legal, and I would submit to you that 95% of all businesses, if they get hammered in a certain year, take as much as they can on a loss basis, so they can, when they make profits, they can have that as a shield. So we understand it intellectually, but emotionally, do you feel most Americans are going to turn against Trump because of this?
I think emotionally, most Americans will be offended by two things. Number one, remember in the debate, she said maybe because he didn't pay any taxes, and he says, well, that would make me smart. Well, her follow-up the next day was pretty good. If that's smart, then what about you who pay taxes? That implies that you're stupid. It doesn't help to essentially be calling the voters dumb for following the rules and ending up paying taxes.
I didn't get that as the implication, and believe me, I pay
many people
an enormous amount of taxes. Okay, well, and I'm not going to dispute that. Look, it sunk Romney. The rich guy hiding money in the Caymans or whatever they threw at him really hurt him. But on this level, with Trump making his whole campaign about what an astute businessman he is, then he can say, look, this was available to me. 95% of corporations would do it. I did it. So why is it being rammed down my throat?
Well, in his case, it's, it isn't as if he's acting for IBM. Trump Organization is Trump. When he says I had a fiduciary responsibility to my company, that means to myself.
Yeah, and his family and his employees.
Yeah, the family and employees, that's true.
Yeah.
But this is not as if he's acting for some third party.
Come on, you're splitting hairs here, Charles. I mean, if you are a businessman and you have a code, a tax code, and you follow the tax code, I'm not understanding why this is heinous.
I didn't say it was heinous. You asked me how I thought people would react. I'm telling you how the ordinary person who pays a substantial amount in taxes would react. There's a very rich guy. He could afford it. He keeps talking about what government is doing. He's not contributing to it. I think the visceral effect, we're not doing intellectual analysis here, is A, I'm a chump for paying my taxes, and B, he's something less than patriotic if he didn't contribute something. Okay.
And I think see that some people, probably the anti-Trump crowd, will see it that way. Now, I expect this to come up tomorrow night in the vice presidential debate. Kaine has got to lead with it and try to get Pence into a corner on it. And then, of course, next Sunday night with Cooper and Raddatz. So is that fair, though? Hillary Clinton's got a lot of stuff in her closet that she did, but this might be all overridden by this tax thing.
Everything is fair. Is there any piece of garbage that hasn't been pulled out in this election and tossed over the net at the other guy? No. So the fairness issue is not an issue. The question is, will it resonate? I think it does resonate, but mostly because he's been hiding his taxes and is the first candidate in several generations to do so. That increases the salience. And also it means that we now get an October surprise instead of an October 2015 surprise, at which point you could ride it out a lot more easily. The later this stuff comes out, the more damaging it can be. So Trump, and that's on him. That's a decision he made.
He has to have a very strong defense, and he started it today in Colorado, in order to counter that, because I agree with you, it's not going to go away right now, and people are going to want to hear what he has to say about it. Charles Krauthammer, everyone.